Hey, what is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Happy weekend, happy Saturday. I know everyone's happy to have made it to the weekend. So in today's video, we are going to be going over something that I kind of went over a little bit on Money Morons yesterday, and I actually got a few messages of people kind of wanting me to clarify and to go a little bit more in depth about it, just in terms of what all we're seeing in the crypto world right now and why I think it's one of the most pivotal moments of all time. So with that being said, that's what we're going to go over today. Of course, before we do that, we're going to jump into some technical analysis on Bitcoin. We're going to take a look at what the charts are doing and what we can anticipate from the entire crypto market. So with that being said, since we do have a lot to go over today, let's go ahead and let's jump straight into the video. So for all you new viewers out there, I will let you know that I do have a Patreon. Now in this Patreon, you get access to many things, such as early access to every video that I post. You get access to my technical analysis, which I do live with my Patreon members. You get access to all of the trades that I make. You get access to my research. You get access to research reports. You get many things. So go down to the link in the description. Go check it out and let me know what you think. Also, if you are looking to expand out into a new brokerage or start your own investment journey, I highly recommend using the referral link down below. It'll bring you over to Webull. Whenever you sign up and deposit $100, you will get 2 free stocks valued all the way up to $2,300. It's a fantastic opportunity that I truly think everyone should take advantage of. So with that being said, let's go ahead. Let's jump into the charts here. Let's take a look at what Bitcoin's doing, as Bitcoin has been kind of being the overall deciding factor of what we're seeing in the market. If Bitcoin goes up, typically everything goes up. And if Bitcoin goes down, as we can see, typically everything goes down. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. So as we can see here, if you were on my Patreon yesterday, or if you're on one of my, if you watched any of my technical analysis videos from the last week, you know that we did actually just cross over a very important level in the wrong direction. Okay, so we set this downward trend line over the last about month now, roughly, almost exactly a month now. From this point, all of these local highs created this trend line, of course, and we did, we established that line there, right? Well, one thing that I did say was that if we go ahead and we get our brush here, if we do kind of zoom in a bit, whenever we did clear this line, when we saw our breakthrough, we didn't see a retest, and that was honestly quite surprising, right? Typically, whenever we do see such a major point of resistance, we will see a breakthrough, a retest, and then continued upward momentum. Well, that's not what we saw. We saw that initial breakthrough, and I said it in a video, and I said it in the Patreon. I was like, it's kind of strange that we didn't see a breakout, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see a fall back down to this level to at least retest it. Well, the issue that we're seeing now is that we saw a failed retest, and what that means is that once we went for that retest, we were unable to establish support on top of this level, whereas we cleared through it, and now it's serving as resistance. We can see that it's serving as resistance because, as you can see, we have tried it within the last few hours to break through it, but the price is simply just failing to break back through, seemingly saying that we may be looking at, hitting our heads, finding some resistance, which could lead again to some downward momentum, which of course would not be optimal. Now, one thing that I will say is that this was not my bare minimum. Now, what I mean by that is this is not the last level of support that I was looking at. The last level of support that I'm looking at personally is going to be this green box that we are seeing here. Anywhere within this box would say, okay, there's still a chance that we are going to see this upward momentum continue. Now, the reason I say that is going to be because on these retracements, whenever we're seeing uptrends begin, or whenever we're just seeing retracements in general, what we see all the time is going to be a retest back to the 618 to the 782 or 786, sorry. As we can see here, it is going to be represented by this green box. Now, what I mean by that is if we kind of come over here, so let's kind of draw this thing out. So say the price of a crypto, of a stock, pretty much anything, they typically look something like this, right, on an uptrend, okay? Well, one thing that we see is that once it grows a significant amount, it always needs a retest. It always needs to find support. Where exactly are we going to establish support and build our foundation in order to build on top of that to get the bears, or, shake out some of these bears to get the bulls back in? Well, typically there's going to be a point where if we draw something looking like this, this is going to be a swing low, and this is going to be to our swing high. This green box right here is typically a good representation of where that retest will eventually lead to, okay? Sometimes we'll see little support bouncing here, and we'll go back up, but typically you will see that retest to this box here. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now, and I'll show you guys a few examples on the chart of that. So as we can see here, if we do kind of zoom out, we can see here from our swing low, which is going to be here, to our big swing high all the way up here, we are touching this very on point. We went up, retouched, boom, and now as it's fallen back down, we've tested it again. Now, just a few examples of this that we've seen in the past. If we look at it on more of a broad term or of a long term, as we can see here, it even works the opposite way. So as Bitcoin's price started to fall from April 13th, we can see here that we are at our swing high, we had our swing low, we had our swing low here, And as it did fall, of course, there's going to need that retest. The retest, whenever in a downtrend, is seeing where resistance is going to be set up at, basically. And from there, we saw a retest all the way back up. We touched into this zone here, and then from there, continuation downward. If we look at it on another uptrend, for example, let's go all the way back out here. This is going to be last year. So if we kind of zoom in, and there are many, many examples of this on the chart. These were just good examples here. So as we can see, this was back in the day. I mean, this was back when we were at like 16 to 20,000. As you can see here, this uptrend was beginning. We set this lower low here, and we set our high way up here. From there, we saw that big growth. We saw the pullback, a touch directly on this golden zone, right? We saw a touch directly in it, as you can see here, establishment of support, and then we really used that to utilize to see an uptrend. So from that, with that being said, that was not, clearing of that trend line that we had set from all those local highs is not the end of the world. Breaking through that is not the end of the world itself, but one thing that it does show is that we are definitely 100% going to need to see some upward momentum, and we need to set an higher high very, very soon. Okay, we need to see this uptrend beginning. This is something that we want to see, right? An expanding wedge would be nice, and maybe we could see something along these lines would be fantastic, but we absolutely need to see that. The reason I say that is because this is a scenario that could play out very soon here if we are if we're not very cautious, right? One thing that we could see happen is that if we do start to rise back up and we bump our heads on this local high that we set here, if you guys notice that, if you notice the charts, we're looking at a head and shoulders here, which is typically pretty bearish. Now, if that was the case, if we were to take, just this distance from the head to the shoulder line, if we were to do something like that, on that breakout, I mean, we could be looking at a fall way down back into the low 28,000 range if we were to break out in the wrong direction. So it's very, very important that we don't see that happen. What we need to see at this point, and what would be very crucial, is now that we are starting to see that, that support get established, is that we are starting to see that uptrend begin. We are going to see some resistance. It's not going to be like this that I've drawn right here. It's not going to be like that, right? What it'll more than likely be would be something along these lines, maybe resistance, boom, a breakthrough, resistance at this other high, boom, a breakthrough. But that establishment of a higher high, we need to absolutely clear that 41,200 mark, that 41,400 mark roughly. From there, that goes to show that this uptrend begins, because again, if we don't set a higher high, if we set a lower high from here, we could be looking at a downtrend beginning, which could also be a head and shoulders. Okay, so pay attention to that right now. It'll be very, very important. What I would say as well is that if we do see this momentum stop, so say if we do continue to fall back down, I would be very, there's a little bit of room. There's a little bit of room left to go within this Fibonacci retracement. As long as we do maintain within these levels here, I'm not going to panic in the sense, which I mean, and I never really panic, but I mean in terms of like, I'm not going to look at it too negatively. But one thing that I will say is that being in this zone is important. If we were to fall through this zone, I would go ahead and say, okay, that's not a good sign. We may be looking at a fall down to like the low 30,000 range again and retesting of that low there. So with that being said, that is going to be the technical analysis. Again, right now we're just in a situation where we need to see that uptrend begin. I'd be willing to bet that we could. I think a good trade right now, I'm not a financial advisor, but what would make sense is the potentially, a setting of a stop loss somewhere around this 32,500 mark, give it some room to breathe, but then maybe opening up a trade in anticipation that we could be retesting that 40,000 mark if the uptrend does continue and if you are bullish on Bitcoin. So with that being said, let's go in further now. Let's talk about what we are seeing in the crypto world and why I truly, genuinely, wholeheartedly believe that we are looking at one of the most, pivotal moments within crypto in general. So we've been seeing a very common trend recently within the governments, right? As we can see here, just within governments, within little areas of each major governments that we are seeing the integration of cryptocurrency. Of course, that's great, but there's something more about it that we'll get into in a second here. So as we can see here, just a few examples. The Central Bank of Portugal, Banco de Portugal, has licensed 2 Bitcoin exchanges for the first time, CryptoLoja and Mind the Coin. So as we can see there, I mean, that's fantastic. That is just more exposure, of course, if we continue forward. Paraguay's Deputy of the Nation and Member of Congress plans to present a Bitcoin bill next month. Following El Salvador's Bitcoin bill, Carlitos Rejala says our country needs to advance hand in hand with the new generation. Another one, this is a great example, and this kind of shows all of the different countries that we've been seeing recently, shows that politicians from Argentina, Brazil, Panama, Paraguay, Uruguay, Honduras, Tonga, I mean, like all of these different countries all tweeted desire to pass Bitcoin, bills similar to El Salvador in their home countries, and Lightning is the technology that will power it all. So what I'm saying with all of this is we are starting to see a mass adoption within governments that is going to integrate Bitcoin into their economies. Now, I know some people will say, well, no, Tyler, that brings regulation and we don't want regulation. Well, let's be realistic here that as Bitcoin does continue to grow, there is eventually going to be interference from the government, right? It's almost unavoidable. There's really not much they can do in order to change it. But of course, they can figure out ways that they can get their hand in it. And that's just how the world works, right? We're going to see that no matter what. But I think that it can be beneficial in the long run whenever it comes to just general mass adoption. But there's something specific I want to talk about whenever it comes to what transpires, what comes from all of this. And honestly, I believe it's absolutely fantastic. What I'd say, when I started to see all of this, there was something that really caught my attention and grasped an idea that I grasped in my mind that really made me excited and even more bullish on cryptocurrencies in general. What follows, before we even talk about what follows it, let's talk about what is the biggest issue that we are seeing within cryptocurrency. I know that's a broad question, but what is one of the most major issues that we have whenever it comes to crypto? Education. Okay. What I mean by that is the general amount of the population who are not investing in a cryptocurrency, of the people who do invest, more than likely don't invest in cryptocurrency because 1, they don't know what it is, 2, they don't understand it in general, or 3, they don't understand the potential that it has in order to change the world. All of those stem from a lack of education. Well, something that we're seeing whenever we see this implementation of Bitcoin or, just crypto in general, whenever it comes into these different governments, is going to be an incentive. We're going to see these governments get incentivized to bring Bitcoin, bring cryptocurrencies within their educational curriculums. Now, one thing that I will say is, of course, people are going to be like, well, Tyler, no, governments don't teach financial literacy, right? None of us, not many of us really took these many financial classes when we were in school from K through 12, when we were in high school. No one really learned that. And of course, that is true. But one thing that I will say is that as time has gone on and as generations are going by, we are starting to see a more massive implementation of financial literacy within the educational curriculum, which would be absolutely massive for Bitcoin. Let's talk about that in a second. But just for example here, we have an article pulled up from actually 2019 that actually does display some of the different changes being made in terms of how financial literacy can be, added to the general curriculum and how different government officials are starting to add it. So, as it says here, when it comes to middle school, only 28 states have recommended financial literacy standards, according to a Brookings report, but many allow localities to decide how to implement such standards. Recently, several states have made financial literacy lessons more of a priority for students, even before they're old enough to get a job, which is so important. In November 2017, then Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker signed a bill requiring school districts to incorporate personal finance into kindergarten through K through 12 instruction. Last year, Iowa and Kentucky made a completion of a financial literacy class a graduation requirement. This month, New Jersey Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver signed a bill mandating school districts to integrate financial literacy into every year of middle school. Lessons will cover topics like investing, credit cards, managing debt, and budgeting. So the reason that I do say that is because, as we can see, we're seeing the more implementation of financial literacy within the K through 12 curriculum itself. And with that, as we are seeing Bitcoin, as we are starting to see cryptocurrencies being integrated within the government as maybe a legal tender, they are incentivized to then teach the upcoming generations about what it is, because it's a legal tender. You don't make it a legal tender and just don't tell anyone. No, you want people to use it. You want people to understand it. And that gives you reasoning and a purpose to educate the upcoming generations on what it is, and that is the true mass expansion. That is the true mass adoption, because as time does go on and as these up and coming generations can start to understand their capabilities, 1, they're going to be smarter than us, so that's going to be absolutely insane. But 2, that widespread adoption that we would see as they start to learn it at a younger age, and it's easier for them to grasp at a young age, because in general, grasping information as a child is much easier as an adult once you've seen a lot. What I mean, just going forward is that we will then start to see the real mass adoption, and then we could truly start to see the potentials of Bitcoin and the potentials of cryptocurrency in general, because we are seeing that education solve a major problem, which is a lacking of knowledge and a lacking of understanding about what cryptocurrency itself is. That's my opinion on it. I could be a little bit off. Of course, people aren't necessarily going to agree with me, but I truly do believe that we will see that implementation of cryptocurrency at even just a minor, very small level would be absolutely fantastic, just to plant that seed for them to be able to grow it as as time does go on. So I'm very excited about it. I think the future is just, I think the future is just so bright. And I think we're just getting started. We're just at surface level with cryptocurrency. And I truly do believe that this is going to be one of the most revolutionary aspects of society that will be in textbooks, that will be in history books, that people will look back at our generation and say, wow, they were really on the verge of something fantastic. And that is why I'm truly bullish on Bitcoin. I'm truly bullish on crypto. And I think we could be looking at one of the most pivotal moments in the history of cryptocurrency itself. So with that being said, that is going to be about it for today's video. And I hope you guys did enjoy. Of course, if you did, you can let me know by smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you are new. I post on this channel 1 to 2 times every single day, and I go live every single day, Monday through Friday. So tune in, come stop by, say hello, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Peace.